I think we're live. Perfect. Hi, everybody, and welcome in. Today is a very exciting day. We have Felipe here doing his very first webinar ever, actually. So this is a big moment for us. I'm Jonathan, before I get too into it. Hi, I'm from SLS Guru. I'm here to just intro everything and, introduce Felipe. And if you haven't, let's see. I can hear myself on another screen, so let me go mute that really quick. Perfect, guys. Hi and welcome. This is the Gothic Framework, the easy way to build full stack Go apps, the webinar. As I was saying a little bit earlier, this is Felipe's first webinar ever, so please give him a warm welcome. And as always, leave questions in the comments and we'll get to them as the webinar goes on. But yeah, Felipe, it's morning for me here. I don't know if it's afternoon or, evening or what time it is for you, but I'm so happy to have you join us here, and I'm so excited to see, the open source passion project that you've gotten ready for us today.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity of being here. It's actually 7 p.m. for me, so a little bit late or early night. So yeah, that's
perfect. The best way to end out your night is to have a live webinar going over this awesome work, guys. I've already seen it before and it's super cool, so I'm really excited. I'll get out of here. I've gabbing a lot, so I'll hand it over to you now, Felipe, and bring up your presentation.
All right. Let's see if they can see my screen. All right, so let's start, guys. Let's talk about the Gothic Framework, the open source Next.js style framework, but for Go developers, right? So you might ask, what is the Gothic Framework? After all, I just give you a short description, but what is going a little bit deeper? So as I said, it is an open source full stack Next.js-like framework but for Go developers. And it has many of the features that Next.js does, but for Go, and it has the developer experience and somewhat the user experience as well when the user is using your app. It has a React-like syntax for building your pages and components, and it uses the Goth stack to do so. So basically, it uses Golang, Tailwind, Tempo, and HTMX to deliver those features. And also, the Gothic framework integrates with AWS SAM. Therefore, you can deploy your apps on your own cloud, on your AWS account, and have your app reaching your users in the best scalable way, which is AWS serverless. Right. So for this presentation right here, we are doing a live coding demo. So we are building Pathfinder. Pathfinder will be a simple app, so you can like your favorite furry friends, your pets, your dogs, your cats, your favorite pet breed that you like the most. There will be a ranking for that, so you can engage into this presentation like your favorite pets, and if you like dogs more than cats, you can like more dog there. If you like more cats, you can enjoy and like your favorite cats there. So there will be in the ranking, there will be a column for dog team versus cat team, so you guys can engage a little bit more and try to make your favorite pet go to the top. All that will be done using Go, and one of Go most strong features, which is the parallelism, that you can use that. So you can run over, we will go over two Go routines to fetch the data from two public APIs, and we'll be doing that in the smallest Lambda configuration possible with 128 megabytes of RAM. So there will be also a live deploy for you guys to see the app, and all the code will be available for you guys after the presentation. So no worries if you skip something and you want to see that. All right, so some prerequisites for you working with the Gothic framework. First, you have to have Go installed and configured. You have to have Docker installed and configured. And if you want to, of course, deploy your app to AWS, you have to have AWS CLI and AWS SAM installed and configured. Some others nice to have. If you use VS Code as I do, you should add the Tempo VS Code extension, the Tailwind CSS IntelliSense extension, and edit your user configurations to have the default formatter to be Tempo for Tempo files. and your Tailwind CSS to understand temple files as HTML. Okay, so let's go for coding time. So first things first, once you have everything installed and configured, you have AWS CLI, SAM, Docker, we'll go and install the Gothic framework. So here, it's my browser. So you can see over here that we have the Gothic framework docs. So gothicframework.com/docs, install latest. So here's how you install the Gothic framework. You can pretty much just copy this command. You can run it on your computer, and you're good to go if you already have Go installed. So I already have it installed, so I'm not going to do that to save you guys some time. But we can start our project right here. So the first command that I'm going to show you guys about the Gothic framework is Gothic framework init. So make sure you are in the folder, in the directory that you want to create your app, as you would do for a new Next.js app, and run this command. So once you do that, it will ask for your Gothic framework project name right here. Let me just add it like this to save you guys some time. And also we'll ask for your Go module name. So this one right here, this is usually where you store your repository that you store your code. So this will be where I'm going to be storing my code here. And once you run the command, it will create a bunch of files and folders showing the project structure for you. So as you guys can already see, the project structure is really similar to Next.js. You're at home here, no problems with that. So you have your public folder with all your images, with your CSS styles. You have your SRC folder where you have your API routes that you can export functions that expose your JSON data. You have also a page directory where you have your page components right there. You have your components directory. So as you can see, the syntax is really similar to React. You can really see that there's a function being exported called hello world. You're exposing an HTML there with a component. There's some CSS classes right here using Tailwind. And you can, for example, on your pages, you can import that component and use that on the page like that. So I don't know if you guys can already see the similarities. So it looks like React, it behaves like React, and you can use that to build your apps, but using Go syntax for most of the logic right here. So you can also pass children components to your other pages and all. So for example, here we have the page layout under here, and you can see there's a children that will be rendered right here. And the children is everything under this right here, as you can see. Okay, so you can inject props. In this case, hello world is receiving nil. It doesn't have any props there, so you can just send it like this. And some other cool features that the Gothic framework has is that it has the folder structure reflects the routes for your app, exactly like Next.js. So for example, the index page will reflect into the root route of your app. The revalidate page right here will reflect into the /revalidate page of your app. All right, so let's start with how do I develop Gothic apps? How do I start working with it? So once you created your app, you can pretty much run the command make dev right here. This command will prompt for Gothic framework hot reload, and that will start your app in real time. So you can debug, you can add features, you can add components and all for your app, and that will be reflected here in real time. So as you can see, this is the default Gothic app. Let's try to change it a little bit so you guys can see it. So let's go for the index page right here, which is this one. And let's try to change, for example, this gray text right here to a red text. So if I go right here and say red and edit that class in Tailwind, that will be reflected immediately to the app, right? So if I want to change the text as well, something like Gothic framework is the best or something like that, and we save it, that will be reflected here as well in real time. So you can see the developer experience, it's quite smooth. It's easy to develop and to work with it. And the syntax is not scary at all. The learning curve is really small, right? So another cool feature that Gothic Framework has is inspired on Next.js caching pages. So over here under the configuration of each page, you can pretty much change the HTTP method to that specific route. And you also can edit the type of page that you're working at. So here we have a static page, pretty much just a cached page that will be cached on the CDN once deployed. But you also have the dynamic kind of pages where this middleware will be run every time you fetch for that page and inject the props right here, right? So the static ones will be running only once, get the data, inject as props, and being cached. The dynamic ones will run every single time. So you can do, for example, some authentication right here, and that will be running every time you fetch for that page, for example. And there's a different, another kind of type of pages, which is the ISR one, which is basically the same feature as the static incrementation caching that Next.js has. So basically, when you want to use it is when you want to have a page that is cached, for example, like this one every 10 seconds. So we want to reduce the load on our database, for example, and we can use that kind of routes to make a cache of the page every 10 seconds. So the user is always receiving a fresh data, but still in a performant way without needing to have a huge database or anything like that. So I'll show you guys this example right here. This is a revalidate page example. So every 10 seconds, it will get time.now and we'll prompt that for the page right here. So if we go here for /revalidate like this will result in this cached page right here. As you can see, 50 is the second that on this timestamp. So after 10 seconds, there will be a new cache, as you can see here, for 10 more seconds, and so on and so forth. The good thing about this is that the performance of your app will increase a lot, and you still can deliver freshness on your data for your users. So e-commerces would benefit a lot from this kind of features, as they do on Next apps, right? So another cool feature that I want to talk about the Gothic framework is the components that came with it and that you can use to improve your SEO experience and your user experience. So as Next.js does have the image component, the Gothic framework has the optimized image component, which has a really similar behavior. Basically, what it does is that it loads a lower resolution of your image first, then therefore you can load it faster and deliver that to your user. And on the background, it will load the original image resolution and transition to that image smoothly. So how does that work? And let's give you an example so you guys can see the differences of performance between one and another, right? So let's start by getting some images right here. I'm going to save you guys some time, so I'm going to get it right here. And you can add those images to this optimized folder right here, okay? So once you have the images there, you can see right here the images that we are going to be using on the website. We can run the command make optimize images, okay? So once you do that, you can see here in the public folder what's going to happen. Gothic Framework will create a bunch of folders for each of those images and will create a lower resolution copy of that image and the original resolution, 100% of the original resolution and 20% resolution of that image. So you can configure that definitely here on under the configuration. So currently it's 20%, but you can increase or decrease that as you wish, okay? All right, so once we have that, we have all the images under the public folder here. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna create another page called optimized. This page called optimized will have the same image on the left using the Gothic component, the optimized image component. And on the right, we'll have a traditional image tag from HTML. Okay, so this way we will be able to see the performance on both side by side and compare those. So make dev again, so we can start our app right here. There we go. We have our app. Let me just save again, just to make sure the page was built. And we go for the optimize it, if you can spell it correctly. And there you go. Did you guys see it? Here, loaded much faster. This is the optimized version. This is not the optimized version. This is the traditional image version. So the original HTML tag. So if you guys were not able to see, it was too fast for you guys, I have a copy here so you guys can see what's happening. This is an app that I already deployed. So this is what your end user will see. So obviously it is in slow motion, but you guys can see the differences. They are really clear. This one just snaps it and it loads. This is a 20% resolution version of an 8K image. So the image is really dense, and therefore it's the bundle size. It's huge. So the browser takes a while to render that, and by loading a lower resolution, you can do that quite fast, and the user doesn't even realize when the original image is there, and that improves your SEO performance as well, right? So once we learned about the Gothic optimized image component, let's use that for our first page, okay? Let's create our first app page, which is the landing page, and we're gonna be using this component to help us improve the experience for our users there, okay? So let me just make some changes to our app so we can have that first page. So first things first, I'm gonna be adding a new font from Google Fonts here for our app. I'm gonna be adding some CSS classes for our first page, okay?
Hey, Felipe, I'm sorry to jump in and interrupt. Would you be able to zoom in a little bit more on the coding stuff? Some people in the comments were asking if they could see it a little bit closer.
Oh, I don't even know how to zoom it on VS Code. Never done it.
If anyone knows in the comments, feel free to let us know. And maybe that's something on the back end that I can figure out. I'll look into it.
All right, so meanwhile, we do not discover how to zoom it in. Let me just add one more thing here, which is the Tailwind configuration, right? So I'm gonna be adding the font that we just added right there. We're gonna be adding some colors, custom colors for the Tailwind CSS. And then just to make sure everything loaded correctly, I'm gonna restart the app right here, okay? Once we did that, I'm just gonna be updating the first page for you guys right here. So let me add the code for the first page again. So this is the new first page. All right. So let me show you guys. This page is clear, the difference by using the Gothic component. So I'm going to be refreshing here. Pay attention to the image. You'll have a lower resolution first, and then you can see the transition. So here, can you guys see it? It's really smooth. The user doesn't realize that, but it gives an impression for the end user that the page loaded faster, and that the user have a smoother experience, and your SEO score increases a lot when you use those kind of components right here, okay? So one more thing that I'm going to be doing now, you're going to be creating the data functions, the backend of our app, all right? So in this backend, we're going to be creating some functions that fetch the path data from public APIs using Go concurrency. We're going to be saving that on a DynamoDB table using the single table design. And we're going to save the user likes for each pet breed and make a rank out of that so you guys can have fun and engage on this app creation, okay? So let's start with me taking that out of your vision for a moment, just so I can add my .env file right here without you guys seeing it. So let me get that right here. And There we go. So we have an env sample here, and obviously I'm not going to show you guys the .env with the credentials, but this is what we have for .env. So basically some IAM credentials for accessing the DynamoDB table that we're going to be creating, the AWS region, the table name, and some default environment variables from the Gothic framework to develop it locally as the port and this local serve variable. Okay, so once we have that, let's create the data folder, a data folder for our backend components and functions, I mean, here. So what we have here is two repositories to access our data. So we have the pet repository with some, let me get like this. So with some structures that we're going to be using to save the data, some structs to save the data on the DynamoDB table, the schemas that we have, some DTOs to pass the data from one function to another for the service, and finally the function that we are going to be using. So basically a simple function from Go that you can find any pets by page, another function right below to find the top five, find our top five ranking from the global secondary index on the DynamoDB table, another function to save the pets to the DynamoDB table, and that's pretty much it for the pet repository. For the user repository, we do have some other functions as well. As I said, the structs for querying the DynamoDB table, and some functions to save the like for the user on a specific pet read. As I said, guys, no worries about the code. You can definitely go for it after the presentation. It is open source on GitHub. I'll send you guys over after the presentation. So no worries if you missed something. But as I said, this function to save the likes for the users and to find the user like for all the pets on that specific page. But I would say the most important code that we have here is definitely the service, where we have some schemas again, and here's the most important code. So as I said, we're going to be using one of the biggest strengths from Golang, which is Go routines, and we're going to be using that to fetch data in parallel from the cat API and the dog API, which are two public APIs to fetch to get public data about dogs and cats, obviously. So what we're doing here, and this is the most important part, is we're fetching 10 cats and 10 dogs in parallel. So 2 requests in parallel. For now, nothing fancy. Once we get that, we have 20 pets, 10 dogs, 10 cats. For each one of those, we're calling the API again. So 20 concurrent requests for those APIs to fetch more information about that pet breed. So for example, for a bulldog, we're going to get where's the weight, how long does it live, a picture of this pet breed, and some information about it. Same goes for the cats and so on and so forth. So we're going to be doing 20 concurrent requests in a minimal configuration lambda. So 128 megabytes of RAM will be running 20 concurrent requests like really fast. This is one of Go's biggest strengths, is to work with parallelism. Okay, so just to show you guys some use cases for using the Gothic framework and advantages that using Go over JavaScript, for example, for those kind of loads. Okay, so also we are going to be saving those 20 pets in parallel into a DynamoDB table over here. So we can fetch from the DynamoDB table instead of every time a user logs to a page, we fetch that from the API. Let's not gonna spend too much of the tokens of the available queries that we can do for the public API, shall we? So let's just use the DynamoDB table cache for that. Also, some other functions here that are not that important as this first one, but basically fetch the breed info for that specific pet. All right. Also fetch the image info and all that. Those just quite a few information there. Okay, so now that we have the functions that we need, let's go for the AWS SAM integration, right? So as I told you guys before, AWS SAM integrates with the Gothic framework, the Gothic framework integrates with AWS SAM, and therefore we can extend the infrastructure that we have for the Gothic framework and create new infrastructure, new resources, meanwhile deploying our app. And the way that we can do that is by using the template right here that we have under Gothic CLI, templates, SAM template. So here's pretty much a normal YAML for AWS SAM. It just has some template functionalities here so we can get dynamic data and inject in there. So how do we extend that? It's pretty much by adding anything here. So we want a DynamoDB table for our app, right? So we're going to be creating a DynamoDB table in the SAM syntax. So here it's how you do it. You go over the resources part and you add your syntax, your DynamoDB table syntax. So AWS DynamoDB table, we're going to be adding 3 important keys for the table. So the partition key as the sort key and the likes count key as a number, so we can have a global secondary index to query for our ranking. Okay, so once we did that, we can also edit the behavior of our caching. So as I said, everything regarding infrastructure is configured here or in the Gothic config, as we will go a little bit later. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go for the server caching disable policy, which is following the pattern that says that we cannot allow anything unless explicitly defined. So basically, you're not allowing any headers to be passed through the lambdas of our server, any cookies, or any query strings. So if you want to enable that, we're going to change that here. Okay. So basically, it's quite simple. Basically what I did here is I'm enabling a whitelist of cookies to be passed through. And the cookie that I'm going to be allowing is the Pathfinder ID. Therefore, we have a user ID for each user to match that to the paths that he likes. And we can count those likes based on it. So for a production environment, obviously, you're going to be sending a GWT token or something similar and using that. But for the simplicity of this demo, I'm just going to be sending a Pathfinder ID that's going to be created once the user enters the website. And for query string parameters, we're going to be allowing everything. Okay. Okay, so once we save this configuration right here, we can also edit the Docker file that's going to be running our app. Okay, so the Gothic framework runs under a Docker file or Docker image. So this is the template for the Docker image that we're going to be using. So it is quite a simple and minimalistic Docker image, and therefore some features might be missing if you want to use HTTPS, for example. So for this image right here, we do not have CA certificates, which is a library that you have to have for using HTTPS requests under this minimal Scratch image right here. So basically what I did is I installed that over the Alpine Golang image, and on the final image, I just added those right here. Okay, so all right, everything configured, everything is fine for us to deploy our app. Let me just make some last changes. So we have some libraries here that are not imported just yet. So we can run go mod tidy right here. That will import everything that we have not imported already. So that should go away. Okay, this is defined. And let me go for, let's deploy our app. As I said, there will be a live deployment during our presentation. So to deploy the Gothic framework, so we have everything configured. We have AWS SAM, we have AWS CLI, we have Docker, we have Golang, we have our app here. How do we deploy the Gothic framework? Is that easy? Yes, it looks like it is the same experience or as smooth as deploying your Next.js app on Vercel, but you're going to be doing that on your own cloud on AWS. Okay, so how you do that is basically you add an additional configuration right here. So the default one does not have the deployment property because it's not a requirement for you to use the Gothic framework on AWS, but this is definitely the recommended infrastructure to running this kind of app because it is streamlined, it scales, and as it is AWS infrastructure, it's taking care of everything for you, so you don't have to worry about it. So this is what we evangelize here in Serverless Guru, and I'm going to be showing you guys the same for this app right here. So basically, you can add this deploy property right here, and you can configure everything for your deployment. So you can add your server memory. It is, as I said, it is set to the minimal amount of memory possible for a Lambda, which will be 128 megabytes of RAM. It is set the server timeout to 30 seconds. You can set it up until 15 minutes because it is not attached to an API gateway. It is attached to a CloudFront CDN, which means that you can have endpoints that run until 15 minutes if you have to. So you can set the region for your app. You can set, if you want or not, a custom domain, and you can set your AWS profile. This part is really important. So some people might have more than one project that they're working at, and they usually configure that using the AWS CLI with more than one profile, right? So you can definitely deploy to multiple profiles by just setting your profile name right here. And another cool thing is that you can have multi-stages deployments. So for this example, a simple example here, we're just going to be having the development environment, but we can definitely add more to this list right here and deploy the app. Okay, so here's the configuration for that specific environment. As the Gothic framework integrates with AWS SAM, you can definitely store your variables and your sensitive data under parameter store or secrets manager, and you can use the SAM syntax to fetch those data under here. So for example, I'm going to be setting the environment variables for that specific container, getting the access key ID from my parameter store and the access key secret as well. All right. So, okay, enough talking. How do we deploy it? Well, make deploy. That's pretty much it. That's the command that you have to run to deploy your app. If you want to deploy for a specific stage, just or stage prod or whatever you want to. So is that simple. It is that simple. So let's deploy our app that will integrate with AWS SAM, and we'll start the deployment for our app. Okay. So meanwhile, we are deploying our app, as I mentioned. Let's go over some frequent asked questions that I get all the time when I'm talking about the Gothic framework, just to save you guys a little bit of time. There will be a time for questions, but I'm going to be saving you guys a little bit of time just answering those questions, and I hope that helps you understand a little bit more about the Gothic framework as well. So the first question that I get a lot when I talk about the Gothic framework is, why have you created it? Like, why does this framework exist? Why have you thought about creating it, and why you decided to work on that project? So to be honest with you guys, basically, I created the Gothic framework because Go is my favorite programming language, and I always enjoyed building full stack apps using Next.js, and I envied JavaScript because I couldn't do the same with Go. So usually when you're working with Go, you're looking for CLI tools, you're looking for backend work, but I always felt that I could do the same with Go, but I lacked the tools to do that. And after I discovered the Goth stack with Go, Tailwind, HTMX, and Temple, I saw some potential of being able to do those kind of apps, right? So building my full stack apps in an easy way using just Go. And I started using this Gothic stack, and I decided to make it a little bit more user-friendly. Like the community way of building Goth apps was less than ideal. And because of that, I decided to try to build some scripts and attach those together to make that easier, and try to make the developer experience and creating full stack Go apps as pleasant and as enjoyable as using Next.js. Because I do think that Next.js is one of the most successful frameworks for building fast, SEO optimized full applications. And I just wanted to do the same, but for Go apps. Okay. Another question that I get a lot after saying all that is, who is the Gothic framework for, right? So the Gothic framework is basically for anyone that wants to create Next.js like apps, but using Go. You can be a Go developer, a full stack Go developer that always worked with I don't know, React on the front end, and you always wanted to create front end apps with Go as well, or vice versa. So you could be a full stack JavaScript developer and you always wanted to learn Go, but you struggle to create your front end applications without it, with it. So you could definitely go for the Gothic framework as well. So anyone that has interest on trying to make some full stack apps with Go, and as I showed you guys a little bit, the learning curve is small. So the syntax is similar to React. The way it behaves is similar to Next. A lot of features from the Gothic framework are similar, and the user experience in the end, optimizing the SEO, is also inspired and aiming for having, if not the same, a better experience than Next.js. All right. So another question is, how did I create the Gothic framework? How was the process of creating it or developing it? So as I said, I started using the community tools, and they were less than ideal. So to develop a Goth app with the standard community tools, you basically have to run your Go scripts on watch mode, usually using Air, which is like Nodemon, but for Go. You have to run Tailwind on watch mode, so your CSS is always up to date. And you have to run Tempo on watch mode as well for your pages to be always recreated, right? So this caused a lot of sync issues between those three terminals that had to be running all the time. And that was a headache every time I tried to develop with those kind of scripts. So I decided to create a single script or a few scripts in Go that tied them together and tried to manage all of that out of sync stuff, try to make that as smooth as possible, the development experience to be as smooth and as enjoyable as possible. Eventually, I started adding some more features to deploy that in AWS using serverless, and it eventually became a single binary that combines all those tools into an easy-use solution, right? So another question, again, is, what is the infrastructure that we're talking about? Like I mentioned a couple of times, we're using AWS serverless. I mentioned a CDN. I mentioned a Lambda. But what is the infrastructure that is used for the Gothic framework? And this infrastructure is really inspired in how Next works under AWS if you deploy a Next app there. But I try to adapt some parts for the Go way of thinking and the Go simplicity. So the infrastructure that we have here is this one, including this is the infrastructure that we are deploying currently here. So as you can see, we are deploying that with AWS SAM. All the configuration, all the infrastructure is being created right here. Meanwhile, we're talking about it. So the infrastructure is based on a CDN, which is CloudFront from AWS, and we have two origins. So the first one points to an S3 bucket. That's where we are going to be storing all the static files that we have. So all your images, your PDFs, anything that goes under the public folder on your Gothic app will go for that S3 bucket and will be exposed through the CDN. All the other routes will be being routed to a Lambda container, including the Docker container and your HTTP Gothic server, right? Why a Lambda container, you might ask? Basically, to make it simple. I try to make the solution as simple as possible, as close as I could to regular Go app. So there's no conflict. There's no not much difference for the users that are used to creating some Go syntax, some Go apps, to understand what's happening there. So this way we can use some important features from Go, like being a compile language, to create a small binary that has over 4 megabytes of size on the Docker image, and that can result in small cold starts for our Lambdas. The average cold start that I measured is around 40 milliseconds, which is amazing for this kind of application where you want your page to be delivered to the CDN as fast as possible and your user to have a better user experience. So we could, get a lot of good stuff from just making a Lambda container. It has a small Lambda image. It is simple, a simple solution, and you can edit that container as you want to. In the future, we're planning on adding support for AWS Fargate instead of a Lambda container. But for the moment, the Lambda container is working just fine. It delivers exactly what you can expect from a Next app or a Next-like app. Okay, so let's just have a quick look. And I guess our application was deployed after all. So we can go over here under the website. You guys can go for this website as well. It's just the first page for now, but it's under webinar.gothicframework.com. Okay, so if we go here and we click on that and we go for this website, you can see that it is live and is working just fine with the image here being rendered and making the transition as we discussed before. Okay, so let's get back to the code. All right, so we already have our app deployed. You guys can see it there. The first deployment always takes much more time than the other sequential deployments, because you have to create all the CDN and everything like that. The following ones are just updating the Lambda function, so that it will be much faster, around 20 seconds or so. So as I said, back to the code. So here at our app, let's create the feed page. Okay, so for creating the feed page, we'll have to create 2 more components. Okay, so I'm going to be making that here just to save you guys some time. So I'm going to be creating the feed card component. I'm going to be explaining to you guys what it is doing, but it's quite simple. Basically, we have it is a dynamic component. Remember that logic. So this middleware will be run every time we call that component. And basically what it does is it receives from a query parameter the page that's going to be fetching. It gets all the dogs and cats for that specific page, and it passes it through to the props. So the props right here are inject, and we can see here that we are using Go syntax to run over each pet and render the cards for the information of each pet. So here we can see we are using the optimized image component for the pet image. We are putting the pet information on the cards and over a loop right here. See? So after that, after the cards, the 10 cards per page that we will have a really nice feature, which is an infinite scroll behavior. And the way you can do that with the Gothic framework is really easy, because the Gothic framework is based on HTMX. If you do not know HTMX, no worries. I'm just going to make it a little bit simple for you guys to understand. But basically, HTMX adds some tags to your HTML, and then you can use that to fetch data and replace HTML under your page. So, for example, after the cards, we'll have a loading sign right here, just a spinner. And this loading sign have this HX trigger property right here. What it means is once this component intersect the user screen, it will go for this HX get URL. So it will go over /components/feed cards and pass the next page. So basically, it's a component that calls itself and replaces the content of this component right here, this part right here, with itself. what it does is basically, once you see the loading sign, it will fetch for the next page data and replace here. If it sounds confusing, I'm going to be showing you guys in practice how it works, so you guys don't get lost over it. So let me just add one last thing to our app, basically going our main.go file here. I'm going to be adding a simple middleware that creates the user IDs, so you guys can basically like the paths that you are seeing there. So once we have that, we're going to be creating the feed page. So feed page right here, importing the feed cards right there. Let me import the UUID library right here. So go mod tidy. All right, so I guess we're ready for the feed page. So make dev. Once we run that, we might have our feed page. Let me just make sure this feed page was created. And we can go over the feed page. I hope it created the feed page. Let me see here. Okay. All right, it created the feed page. Okay, perfect. So let me show you guys here the feed page. So as I told you guys, all those paths are path information are coming from the API. So we already fetched 20 of those. We are displaying 10 of them here with all the information from the public APIs. So I apologize for the picture quality. Not all the pictures have the same ratio. So some of them might be a little bit looking bad, but this is the idea here. So I love this pet breed, the Shiba Inu one. So I'm going to be liking that. This one looks really cute as well. So I'm going to be liking that as well. So as you guys can see, we are already saving that to the DynamoDB table. And just so you guys see me liking a cat, let's like this one right here. Let's go for this. This one actually has a really cool picture. And this one as well have a really cool one. So, okay, now let's talk about the feature that I was telling you guys about. So remember when I told you about this spinner right here that fetches more data and call itself? So I'm going to be showing you guys in practice. So as you can see here, the cards ended. That's the 10th card. That's the last one. So there will be a loading sign under it. And once this loading sign is visible on my screen, this will be going to be calling the same component, getting more data for the next page and replacing itself with cards and another spinner below. So we have an infinite scroll behavior. So let's go over it. So here is the loading sign. It's fetching, and then it replaces itself with more cats and dogs for the next page. Okay, so you can see the American Bully here. I love this breed, and some cats here as well. Again, another loading sign, getting other pets in there. It goes indefinitely. It will load for more pets. If we have data, we will have more pages, and it scrolls infinitely. So really cool feature that I could show you guys that the Gothic Framework can deliver really easy just by using HTMX and its potential. So now that we have some likes from some pets, let's go for the final page of the app, right? Let's go for the top 5 ranking page. And to do that, as always, let's create a component. Basically, I'm just creating a table, okay? So as you can see here, it's a simple HTML table, just using Go syntax to go over all the headers and the columns and all the information that we need for that. So simple table there. And we're going to be creating the top 5 page. So nothing fancy there. Basically, we are basically just getting the data and injecting that in the props to be rendered here, passing the table component. Okay, so an interesting thing about this is that I don't want to fetch for the data on my DynamoDB table every time a user reaches for that page, okay? Because that top ranking might not change as frequently. So let's save us some queries for our database, some traffic for our database. So let's cache that page for 10 seconds, okay? So if you guys give it a like and it bursts the likes of one specific breed, that's only going to be updated after 10 seconds, and the user is going to be receiving the pet rank really fast because it will be cached on the CDN every 10 seconds, and in the background it will be fetching for the new page after 10 seconds, okay? As I explained you in the beginning of this presentation with the revalidate page right here, remember? Okay, so now let's just save that and let's go for our ranking page right here. So after I click there, you can see here that dogs so far are winning, and we have some cats. It's kind of a well, there are more cats than dogs here. So as you guys add more likes, that will result in a different ranking every 10 seconds. Okay, so this is the rank. I'm going to be deploying that for you guys later on, so you guys can like them pets and have a good experience trying to make your favorite pet breed go over the top 1 or top 3. So just before I deploy this new version of our app, let's add one and show you guys one more feature, okay? So this feature is the prefetch link component, okay? So if you ever use Next.js, you probably try to improve your app navigation by adding the link component to your app. And you can definitely do the same here with the Gothic Framework, but using an HTMX extension. So how you do that, and I'm going to be showing you guys, is basically you go for your layout, you add the script for that extension. In this case, this is the preload extension, and you add that to your body on the under the hx extension property right here. So you can add the preload here as well. So once you do that, you can go for every part of your app that has an href or an anchor tag, and you can add this preload mouse over. Okay, so what it does is every time you go, let's open here the network tab so you guys can see it. So every time the user passes the mouse over, you prefetch the next page that you're going to be fetching. So this makes the navigation much faster between pages. Okay, so as you can see now, we are prefetching every time that we pass our mouse over, and the navigation is much faster, and even faster if you deploy your app. So it will be in the CDN, and it will be the user can get that HTML in 20 milliseconds or so. That's the average on CloudFront. So this is another cool feature and simple one. Just wanted to show you guys how to improve the performance on the navigation and how the Gothic Framework delivers that, having similar experience to Next.js. So yeah, let's deploy the app so you guys can definitely work on making your favorite pet breed going over the rank. So make deploy again. As I said, the second deployment or further deployments are much faster than the first one. So this will be deployed for you guys soon. Okay, so just before I finish my presentation, I just want to tell you guys that I hope you enjoyed what I showed, the capabilities of the Gothic Framework. I hope you guys get as much excited as I do when I decided to create that, and you're going to be trying to create a new Gothic app soon. It is totally open source, guys. So if you want to contribute to that or give some ideas, report some issues, give it a star. Definitely go for a GitHub Felipe GNF Gothic Framework, and yeah, that's about it. So I'm open to questions. There are any questions regarding the Gothic Framework so far? Meanwhile, we deploying the app.
Hey Felipe, I'm back on stream. here to help go through a little bit of questions. I just want to say, first of all, great job on the webinar. That was awesome. Definitely didn't feel like your first one, maybe like your fifth or sixth. So definitely hitting that good stride. And I just wanted to put out a warning: if anyone does end up using your website and they vote on a dog, the dog may show up. So be careful, folks. Because I went to the feed and my dog showed up, angry that I was looking at other dogs. So be careful of that. But we do have some questions here. There's actually a fair bit of them that I'll just start throwing out. But you did such a great job. All right, let's see. We have a question from Joao. Would you say the main goal of the Gothic framework is the performance or the developer experience?
I would say the main goal for the Gothic framework is to try to deliver the same experience to create full stack apps as you have using Next.js on the JavaScript environment. So, for example, if you want to create an app really quick and you want to optimize that for SEO and you want to do it in a simple and smooth way, the Gothic framework have your back. Okay, so the same reasons that would make you use Next.js for developing your app will be the same, but for Go developers or for developers that you want to use Go, but using the Gothic framework. So that kind of healthy competition between those. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, and we had a question from Buff Tomato. What is parallelism, and why is Next.js so good for it, or I suppose Go in this case?
Yeah, so parallelism is when you can use all your CPUs to fetch at the same time. So the difference between concurrency and parallelism is concurrency, you can do multiple tasks or multitasking in the same CPU. So Go excels at this, and Go excels as well on parallelism, which is making the same thing, but with multiple CPUs. So you're running multiple tasks on each CPU that your server has. So if your Lambda has more than one CPU, you'll be doing that on all those at the same time and multiple tasks at the same time as well. So for example, it is really expensive for a Node.js app or a Java app or any other language that does not have green threads. I'm going too deep over it, but let's make it simple. So the cost of creating a new thread for most of the programming languages is 1 megabyte of RAM usually. So you cannot have like 1,000, 2,000 of those because you're gonna use a lot of memory. For Go, it is 1 KB of memory. So you can definitely create 1,000, 2,000 threads simultaneously, and on each thread, make an HTTP request or make a DynamoDB table request, and that's not going to be using or eating a lot of memory for your app. So you can work in a lot of complex and CPU-intensive tasks for your app. So if you're choosing between Next.js and Gothic framework, and you don't care about the language that you're using, but you do care about having a backend function that does a lot of tasks at the same time, probably Gothic framework is the one to choose.
Nice. Thank you so much for going through that. That's perfect. I hope that was helpful, Buff Tomato. Joao has another question. Does the Gothic framework only support Docker/containerized environments, or can we use it everywhere?
Yeah, the recommended infrastructure for the Gothic framework is the Docker container Lambda function, just to make it simple and you don't have to worry about anything. You're using serverless infrastructure. AWS is taking care of everything for you. But in the end, it is just an HTTP server that Go can build. So if you want to use your own cloud and make your own CDN solutions and scale your servers as you wish, well, it's a Go binary. Just compile it, add to your own cloud. If you want to add it to Azure, if you want to add it to Google Cloud, try to integrate that with your CDN of choice, of your server of choice. It's really open for you to do that. Or also, if you wish to create a plugin or an extension for the Gothic framework, it is open source, and we will enjoy a lot to add that feature. That would be really amazing.
Perfect. All right. Is there any benchmark of the Gothic framework against regular Next.js, or is this kind of like the first?
Yeah, I did some myself, but I never published them. So as I said, the constant code start that I can get for my Lambda functions on the Gothic framework under many websites that are created for myself are usually between 40 milliseconds. And that's really impressive, given that a regular Node.js Lambda can get between 80 to 300 milliseconds of cold start. So it is really impressive to have a Go binary in a container getting 40 milliseconds consistency on the cold starts. So as for the page delivery, you might ask, it is the same performance as Next.js once the CDN is the same. If you deploy a Next.js app under AWS, the infrastructure is pretty much the same. The only difference is that you have multiple lambdas for each endpoint and each component, each page, instead of having a single Docker component, Docker file.
Yeah. Nice. Perfect. Okay. How long does the content remain preloaded? If the user cleans the cache, does it need to be preloaded again? Joao was thinking about stale data there.
I don't think I understood the question correctly. Let me see again. How long does the content remain preloaded? You see you mean the cache timing, right? So CloudFront can cache your data for up to 1 year, and the ESR is set to amount of seconds. So if you cache your page for 10 seconds, as I did there, the cache will be delivered to your users until the new cache page is delivered to the CDN again from the Lambda. So I think as long as you take for creating a new cache page. I don't know if that's your question, but that's what I got. That's what I understood.
If that doesn't cover the question, Joao, feel free to post it in the comments and we can follow up on that. But I think that's a great response, Felipe. And I think we have maybe one or two more questions here. Joao may have got it. Thanks for explaining. Yep, sounds good. And then, okay, one that this may be the hardest question of the day. Are you more of a cat or a dog person?
I mean, that's hard to say, but because I never had any of those. Like I always loved cats and I always loved dogs. I was a little bit afraid of dogs when I was younger because I got a dog bite when I was really young. But I always loved dogs and cats. I don't know. I might ask you in a few years when I actually get my first pet.
Yeah, you're gonna tell us you're like a fish person or something. You're gonna go in the complete
Exactly. I
opposite
always
direction.
had
You got like a
fishes and
parakeet.
stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think those are the main questions. There's one about is Go beginner friendly, but I think you covered that in the frequently asked
Yes.
questions.
I would say that Go is one of about Go, not the Gothic framework, but Go is one of the most simple programming language that you can have. You have only 20 reserved words. So for someone that already works for a lot of other programming language, any other programming language, you might get surprised. There's no while loop. You use a single for loop without any parameters. So it is quite simple, minimalistic and simple. Um, Although some concepts might be advanced for using Go, okay? You might have to understand a few complex concepts, but the syntax itself and the experience of a hands-on first app in Go is quite simple, and the Gothic framework follows the same. It's just it has a similar syntax with Next, so if you're used to Next, you use the Gothic framework, so it is a smooth experience.
That's awesome. Well, I think that is all the questions. You had a lot of comments saying how cool this is, how interesting and things like that. So really fantastic work, Felipe. I think you did an amazing job, but that's just me personally. I hope everyone else had had as much fun as I did going through all this. And if there are any questions, Felipe, where can they find you if they need to ask you a question or anything like that about this?
Definitely. You can find me at LinkedIn or you can find me at GitHub for asking for new features on the Gothic framework or anything like that. If you have any questions or you have any requests for new features for the Gothic framework, definitely go there under Felipe Gini F / Gothic framework. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You can reach out for Serverless Guru as well. I'm always there. I'm always around. So that's it.
Yep, we just posted the GitHub link, guys, into the comments there. It's / I think you said Gothic Framework as well. So this is just going to be your main GitHub. So find it there, guys. And if you have any questions for Felipe, find him on LinkedIn. He's really active on there and easy to reach. So make sure that you play around with this, webinar.gothicframework.com to try out the feed yourself. But yeah, are there any closing thoughts or anything else you'd like to say, Felipe, before we end the stream?
Yeah, just want to say I appreciate the opportunity again to be talking to you guys here. If, as I said, if you guys have any compliments, any say things to say about the Gothic framework or anything related to open source, I'm always open to talk about it. Open source is a big part of my life. I really enjoy working and helping on open source projects. So feel free to reach out for maybe work together on a project like this or contribute, and don't forget to give it a like, because this is really important for those kind of frameworks that are just starting. So
Exactly. Well, I couldn't say any better. Thank you, everybody. Join us for the next stream, and shout outs to SLS Guru. Feel free to join, not join, but to visit our website. Our name is our website. And also shout outs to Believe in Serverless. Thank you so much for helping us host this. And Felipe, I can't wait to see you on another webinar soon. I think you'll crush it on the next one as well. All right, everybody. Thank you.